So, yesterday's video you got to see, like I say, a bit about Fowler and Gilbert and a bit about the big site. So today we're going to have a look at the balance of what we recorded yesterday on the big site with Dave marking out them foundations and starting to dig them off. So we'll go straight to the big site and see what was left over from yesterday. So one of the things that we discussed with the big site was the biodiversity net gain that we've had to put in place. I'll show you why. So as you can see on the new site, this is the new development site, the big site. Down this line here, we've got an old railway line, which is where we're standing now. So the railway itself closed in, I think from memory, about 1967. Obviously way before my time, but I think Dave was probably about 20 or 30 by that point. But what has happened, since the railway line's been closed, obviously all the track has gone, everything's been removed, but underneath us here, we've obviously got the build-up. Now, if you look at the height difference between here and the ground over there, bearing in mind when this railway line was built, this would have all been done with horses and carts. You know, there would have been no big machinery like what we've got on site for muck shifting or moving. So the build-up, I think, from this, when we've done some of the surveys, we've found that we've got the original topsoil, and then we've got layers of clay, sand, ballast that has built this layer up, and eventually it's been covered again pretty much with topsoil, which is greened all over. But what this has created is a bit of a wildlife corridor, and you can see there's a pond over here. So we've tidied it up a little bit and sorted the edges out, but the main part of the pond is being kept for one part of the Biodiversity Net Gain Scheme that the government brought in last year, and two, what we don't want to do is we don't want to turn the whole place into concrete and do away with all the nature of the trees and, you know, everything that's going on down here, all the animals. So what we want to do is we want to try and retain some of that. So this wildlife corridor that we would have had here, as in the railway line, part of this railway line is going, but we're replacing it with retaining and making better and of the pond here. As we look across the sites, we've got the nice oak trees over there. A lot of developers probably would want them gone because they're a nuisance, they're in the middle of the site. We want to keep them because they're part and parcel of the heritage of this site. So we're going to retain them oak trees, and we're going to put some landscaping around them and build big corridors that connect this pond to the canal at the rear of the site, to the brooks and the ditches over there. All the areas that are rich with wildlife we want to retain. All the hedgerows, we're going to build these 20 metre and 10 metre buffer strips that are a bund that's planted with scrub. So there's a nice area around the whole site that connects everything together, and we don't lose that transfer of wildlife throughout the site or the routes that it uses. There's some big ponds going down in the bottom corner, partly for attenuation, partly again for wildlife. Same again in that far corner of the site. And then on top of all of what we've done here, we've actually bought another about 20, I'll have to check, 20 something acres, 28 acres, something like that, of land that we're basically putting into the Biodiversity Net Gain Scheme. So what that means is a Section 106 agreement that we put in place with the council, and for 30 years nobody, no matter whether we sell the land or some other developer comes along or anybody changes their mind, I change my mind for argument's sake, none of that matters. For 30 years that land is almost classed as like a set aside. So it's planted up with some scrub, there's areas that are enriched for wildlife, and that's got to be left alone for 30 years. So no machinery on it, you can't plough it for argument's sake if part of it was a field. It has to just be let alone, let go, which I think is really good. So while Dave is finishing setting up the magic bit of kit, what we've got here is we've put a bund along here which separates the site, or the start of plot 2 as we know it, which is where the first building's going, and we've put this bund stroke buffer strip landscaping. And what that'll do is we'll have a fence line roughly where I'm standing, and the bund that's there is just to help retain the wildlife on that side. We'll plant it up with some scrub, so it gives a nice sort of buffer strip between the hard concrete and industrial site, and obviously retaining that element of the Biodiversity Net Gain Scheme for wildlife. So Go and see if Dave's finished setting up and see what this bit of kit does. All set up and ready to go, Dave?
Yeah, it's all set up. So we found the control points, we've registered them with the station, and now we've set it up robotic. So the total station there now is tracking the electronic prism here, which is sending a signal to the controller, so it now knows exactly where it is. So we can start using the base plan now to start setting each individual base point.
So this station here will follow the eye effectively.
We'll
up
follow
there.
that robotically now. So long as I move, if I move too quickly, it'll obviously struggle to keep up, but so long as I travel at a reasonable walking speed, it will continually keep going. So long as it's got a line of sight from this to the station and it's transferring the signal back to the radios, it will always...
Right, so the base station is basically, it's measuring this point all the time, which is where you get your millimetre precise location on the site.
So on the drawing on here, it'll show us where we are in relation to the total station. So we're the little man with the staff, and the total station is a picture of that on here.
You're the little man, I'm the big man.
Yeah, it can't show two men on here, but,
no.
But I would be the bigger man.
No, you are the big lady.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to head across to pull the drawing across. We're going to start on this first left-hand corner up here. There's a control point in the middle of that. Let's just clear out of that. Let's go into points. Search for points. There's the point. We go next. And from this point it'll tell us exactly which direction to walk to find that first point on there. So it's telling us we're 19 metres away from it, and we have to go right approximately 8 metres. Everything is in relation to this total station being the centre point.
So as you're looking at the station, it's telling us to go right.
Yeah.
And further away by 19.111 metres.
Meters, yeah. So if we start walking in that direction, it'll start counting down the numbers until we get nearer. Once we get nearer the point where we're marking, it'll then change the screen to a bullet target, and we then have to line the two targets together. The bullet lines up with the circle.
Right, okay.
So we'll head off across to the first point.
So moment of truth now, have we dug the site off big enough?
Oh, that's the big question, that one. So we've now changed the screen, we've gone to the bullseye and the target with the blue circle, and we've got to get that to line up into the green.
Okay.
Everything's in relation to the total station behind us. So we've got to go further, 0.7 of a metre, and go left a metre.
So we're definitely big enough.
We're down to 35 millimetres and 17 millimetres from the centre.
So at this point, we're not overly worried about height.
Height we're not, no, but we've got a cut of 0.4 of a metre. So to the top of the base pad, we need to be down 450 millimetres, which is banged on because finished floor level, we've got then a pad of concrete to go on top of this.
Yeah.
So we've got 450 down to the top of the pad, which is the footing level as well for the brick wall that's going to be around the outside of the building. Yeah. So the pads that we're doing now for the steel frame are finished height at the same height as the foundation footing for the wall. So if we want to be critical, we're 16 millimetres distance from the total station, and we've got to go left by 30 millimetres. That's good enough for setting out. We'll mark a square out from that centre point. Yeah, so I can mark the centre point of this. I could carry on and mark the outer perimeters or corners of the pad as well. It's easy enough to set that.
Yeah, okay. And then I take it after that, Matt comes in, we dig the hole, and obviously then we set the concrete.
Yeah.
Set the pins. Okay. So you take it, you go now, Can you go anywhere you want, or do you have to go in a straight line? Or
I can go to any base you want. So we're happy with that one. We'll put set out. It'll take a measurement of that. It'll take a reading. It's now recorded all of that data. It's all there. It can be downloaded onto the computer if we need that data for anything else. Click OK. It's now asking for the next point. It's as simple as click the next point, click next. It's telling me it's 5.6 meters that way, roughly 1.5 meters to the right. Okay. So literally as simple as walk to the next one. There we go, we've gone to the next screen with green circle over the blue. We're going to go farther, 39 millimeters. Go left, 65 millimeters. Get the little bubble here, has to always be centre to get the rod perfectly vertical. Once we've sighted the bubble, we're then looking at 23 millimeters and 35 millimeters. We could bring that tolerance down if we were critical at this point. We'll use exactly the same process to set the pins into the concrete, and we will go to within 10 millimeters tolerance on that.
Right.
So there, if we want to go critical, we're now at 0 millimeters in the near distance, and we were at 10 millimeters.
So
that's the centre of the next base. Set that one out. Let it record the data. We're happy with the data. Choose the next point. Keep going.
Yep. So what we've got is we've got a 6F5 base, and basically that's 6F5 is recycled hardcore, so it's crushed concrete, brick, rubble, anything that basically resembles rubble has been crushed down to a grade. That grade is 6F5 in this case. We've laid it. Unfortunately for us at this time of year it's quite difficult because the product itself is not like clean fresh stone, so it does get a bit mucky at times. Especially when you've got a wet site. We've just had a lot of snow, as you've seen, so for us it's made the site a little bit mucky. When we're digging foundations like this, what we do is we lay this material on top of a terran. Now the terran acts as like a blanket over the ground, so we lay the terran, we lay the stone on the top, and then what we do when we're digging foundations, that stone, we don't want to lose that stone, we want to save it, so we scrape the top off of where we've marked out with the total station. So roughly take that 6F5 material off, we put it in the dumper, and we keep going down until we've taken all the top off as we go along. We'll check everything is right in terms of measurements, and then we'll start digging through the clay. The idea being that the foundation itself, when we put it in, needs to be into virgin ground. So although we've scraped the topsoil off this site before we've laid the terran and the stone, this is the virgin ground, this is the clay, this is what we're going to dig into. And when we pour our foundation in there, basically what it gives us is a good key into the existing material in the ground that hasn't been moved. So it's dead strong, set in, can't move. with a bit of luck, we won't have any problems here, but sometimes you can dig down, you can hit running sand, you can hit various different things under the ground that cause you issues. When we've had this site surveyed, it didn't show us there was going to be any issues, so fingers crossed, we'll be all right. So that's it on the new site for today. Obviously foundations will be dug now. We'll go back and have another nosy once they're starting to pour concrete, and we'll explain that next stage of the project. Back to the office. So there we have it, that's the end of episode number 2. I do apologise, we did say that we would take a look at the farm and we would also take a look at the house build, which we haven't had time for. So we'll jump straight onto that in the next episode. But for now, I'm logging off because I'm having a slightly early finish because I want to go home and watch season 1 of Clarkson's Farm, ready for the 10th, which is season 2 coming out. So excited to see that one. So if you like what you've seen today, please hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.